Hello, my name is Ateo, and today we're going to be looking at a replay for Shifty Someone. Let's put it on their view and let's get into it. Put it on this, put it on this. This replay I'm not going to go too ham on. Just going to cover the opener, as there's quite a few things to shift around, if you will, for this player. So let's get into it. Let's see the opening here. See some stuff queued up. So here already, so in Beyond All Reason, it's very important to try to grab your metal as soon as possible. Metal is very often the limiting resource, as like with energy, you can kind of just build it wherever, like the winds and the solar, you just build wherever the heck you have room for it. Whereas the metal, you have to build on these spots specifically. So I'd highly suggest grabbing 2 mexes at the very least before building energy. So the opening here, let's see, let's look at the queue. So the opening here looks like it is mex 2 wins. I believe there's one queued up right here. Into a second mex, 2 solar, and then lab. So the way you might want to rearrange this to get more metal out of it is build 2 mexes first, then grab some wins, and then your lab. Also, if you're going to be opening vehicle lab, I highly suggest grabbing all 3 mexes before building the lab. It's a little bit of a walk to get the third one, but it is doable. So if you're going to do it that way, I suppose I should mention, okay, so metal extractors, they cost 500 energy and 50 metal. You start with 1,000 energy, and if you, I don't know if you know this or not, but if you, click on your commander, you may notice that the commander actually produces 2 metal and 25 energy. It also shows what it's using in terms of the build, like it's building right now, so it's using these resources. That's what the minus amount is. So if you grab 3 mexes before getting any energy at all, basically the way it works out is your energy will drain basically to 0 with the third one. Um, and because of that little bit of plus energy you get from your commander, you don't, you can actually get all 3 mexes before running out of energy. So if you grab all 3 mexes, you won't have any energy to produce anything with. You'll have a little bit of income, but you'll basically be stalling and not utilizing it properly. So what you can do, it kind of depends on what kind of energy you're going for, because solar collectors do not cost energy, whereas wind turbines do cost a little bit. So if you want to open with winds, the way you would do it is grab 2 mexes, build 1 winds turbine, grab your third mex, and then add on a couple more energy. And then to build the lab, you want something around like 50, 60 energy income. And that usually works out to be like 2 solar collectors or 3 wind. Or we could do, and it really depends on how strong the wind is. So right now, wind is providing 10.1 energy per second. Solars provide 20 per second, but they cost a ton of metal, so you don't really want solar collectors, because again, oftentimes the limiting factor is the metal. So ideally you do get winds. The only caveat is if the wind is very low. And on this map, on Supreme Strait, wind is actually fantastic. 14.2 is a very high average wind speed, and it's far more efficient than solar. But yeah, I'm just getting this information by hovering over the wind here. So this number at the very top right is the minimum wind speed. The number at the bottom right is the maximum wind speed. and then the number in the middle is like the current wind speed. And then the average, just you have to get the average by hovering over it. But 14.2 is very high average. So wind is, if you decided to go pure wind is actually really, really, really good. It's much better than I mean, even if wind is very low, it's better than solar. Um, and in this case, it's significantly better than um, advanced solar as well. We'll talk about that a little bit more a little bit later. But I hope all that makes sense. Um, so I mentioned that if you're going to start with wind, you want uh, two metal extractors, one wind turbine, grab the third metal extractor, and then a couple more winds or a wind and a solar, and then get the lab. And that is a reasonable starting build order for vehicles. Um, if you are, if you want to get some solar, what you can do instead is grab all three mexes before any energy, and then plop down two solar collectors. And the reason why you don't need to build that wind turbine is because the solars don't cost energy. So this should work out where you don't really stall. If these mexes are very close together, like on some maps, and you build them immediately, you might stall very slightly on that third mex, but to be honest, like to me, it's still pretty efficient. And if you feel like it's not efficient, just grab a solar or a winds before that third mex. So yeah, let's unpause, take a look. So yeah, here the two, these two winds aren't really necessary quite yet. It's not until after the mex. Um, and so the reason why you'd want some extra metal for vehicles is because vehicles cost a little bit more or not energy, sorry. They cost a little bit more metal than bots do. So if it was a bot opening, two mechs is fine before building it. You could still grab the third one to boost your metal income for later, which is kind of optimal in a way. But yeah, you have to do some planning with the wind turbines and stuff. All right, so you're getting your lab, queuing up some blitzes, and let's see how you handle this part. Okay, so now you're assisting the lab. Your energy's draining because Commander has a ton of build power. So Commanders have 300 build power. These labs have 100. So here, actually, I want to pause again. I want to note two things. First of which, basically, as soon as your energy drops or reaches around zero, you want to try to fix that ASAP. Um, it's very important to try to maintain having the resources to build with, because unlike other RTSs in VAR and other total annihilation type RTSs, um, basically you get the income per second and then you spend it depending on how much build power you put on things. And if you don't have the resources for it, the build power still tries, the best it can to use the resources. But if you don't have it, then it just doesn't make sense. So in this case, when your energy gets this low, the build power of the commander and the vehicle lab, while producing, I mean, in this case, it's going to be pretty much anything, but um, while producing units and stuff, like it's just not going to utilize that full 400 build power. So instead, you want to build some more energy here, which is very common, very typical. After the lab, you get some more wind turbines or whatever before assisting it. Um, and then the other thing I want to say about that is if you don't have enough energy, especially, then metal extractors do not extract the metal. So metal extractors, if you look at the bottom here, you can see this on any unit you click on really. Um, uh, they require 1.5, or actually they require 3 energy to use. Right now it's kind of doing it at a half amount. Like it's both these are cut in half. So this in this particular frame, this metal extractor is extracting half as fast as it could, and it's only using 1.5 energy instead of 3. And then this extractor is actually not producing at all because it doesn't have the energy to. Um, in terms of order of operation for build power and like energy usage, it goes to the commander first and constructors. So whatever they're building will eat the resources first, and then things like labs and construction turrets that are assisting will eat it second. Um, Actually, I think the extractors eat it second, and then the uh, assisting con turrets and lab eat it third. Basically, it has to do with this priority button here. So this lab, like by default, is on low priority. The commander and construction vehicles are on high priority by default. So they eat the resources first, and then the assisting stuff will eat whatever is remaining, basically, or the stuff on low priority will get the remainder, basically. Um, see, okay, so the second thing I wanted to talk about here is just like how important resources are in RTS. So like in RTS, the idea is, the win condition is destroy all enemy commanders. In this case, in other RTSs that might be destroy all enemy buildings or something like that. Um, so the idea is you want to get as many resources as you can to support more of an army to be able to achieve that goal of destroying your opposition. And in order to do that, you want to grab this metal sooner. You want to grab as much metal and resources as you can sooner so that you can produce more units and stuff in the long term. In the very short term, like yeah, you can produce some blitzes, um, but at this point in the game, honestly, like they're not really going to be that useful. Like sure, they could stop like scouts and stuff that could try to attack you, um, but you can actually just defend it with the commander himself because the commander has a very nice DPS of 187. It attacks pretty fast too. So things like scouts, like the commander can basically handle any number of scouts that come in here, um, until it's like a ton of scouts. But in order to defend all your structures, you want them near your commander. So this red ring here is the range of the commander's attack. This green ring here is the range of his build power, and then the dotted, in case you don't know, is the range of because the commander has a little bit of radar as well, so he sees a little bit of extra area. Um, but yeah, so the commander stationed here assisting the lab protects this zone. But your buildings here are a little bit more undefended. It's a little bit easier for a ticker or scouts or something to come in here and destroy these. So ideally, you want to place these a little bit closer to like the center area near your lab, so that the commander can just attack it while also assisting the lab. One of the things you can do to help yourself out with that is like when you build metal extractors, they don't have to be exactly over the metal in a lot of cases. It's really map specific, but you can actually off center it. So you see the green grid of where my cursor is. It's actually going to place the mechs in that I don't know if or yeah, hopefully you can see that shadow like blueprints of a building, but that's where like that's how much of an offset you can give it. So you can actually place these metal extractors a little bit more centralized towards that zone. So this one could be a little bit more this way. This one could be a little bit more down. And if you're going to grab a third one, it could be, a little bit closer this way as well. And that'll just help the commander build them faster as well, starting out. So you want to try to place your commander, initially you want to place your commander where it can build, um, or where it's closest to building all three of these mexes, so that it can immediately build one, and then hopefully immediately build the second one right after. And then in this case, you'd definitely have to walk to get the third one, um, but that's okay. That's totally okay to do that. I hope all that makes sense. Ask me some questions if it doesn't. Um, but yeah, okay. So yeah, I was talking about having these vehicles out didn't really make as much sense. Um, Usually, what people try to open with is having at least one or two constructors first. Basically, you want to try to get the resources, your economy going ASAP, because the sooner you get it going, the faster, you can start cranking units out. And in the long run, it'll just give you more resources to just have more units. So yeah, usually construction vehicles first. If you feel unsafe or something, or you want to scout your opponent, you want to get these rovers to scout with. Just a couple. You don't need a lot. I mean, even just one, or something like that. And then to defend your base, your commander just being centralized with stuff, I think, can help a lot. So yeah, usually at least two construction vehicles. Um, if you're trying to be greedy or boost it a little bit more, like you could get three. I've even tried going up to like four or five, but if I do that, I might mix in a blitz at some point first. And then after those construction vehicles are done, then you can produce, a handful of blitzes or something like that. Um, but yeah, it is important to have some vehicles at the fronts, especially because this is a lot of metal reclaimed to be had. So yeah, it is important to move your commander out at some point too. Okay, so this is cool. I mean, you're eating some energy because you realize that your energy is low. Um, I would say, yeah, it's generally okay to do, but also, just know that you eat it once and you get that pip of energy, but it doesn't last forever, right? So you also want to add on some energy. Um, and then I would also say it's important to boost out your constructors initially, because it does take a while for the factory to build stuff on its own. Only 100 build power. It takes a little bit of time to actually produce out of here. Again, the commander adds 300 build power, so that's basically you know that's 300% more. So um, just help produce these construction vehicles to just give you the build power to build more metal extractors, more energy, and yada yada. Um, so the faster you get these outs, the faster you can get all that going. Um, and yeah, also, um, you can assist the lab with your construction vehicles too to give it some extra build power. Each construction vehicle gives you 90. I think for bots it gives you 80. It's a little bit less, type of thing. So you're eating a little bit of energy. I think you're just gonna move up. Yeah, okay, so you're moving forward from here. But yeah, this just takes a while to get this structure out, but it is important to get your commander up front. So I'm glad to see you do that. Um, of course, one of the main reasons to do that is to secure the fronts so that these metal extractors are safe for you to get. Okay, you see that at Lazarus, you go to get it. Another thing to consider that I would highly suggest, to me, radar is like the best unit in the game. It's very, very important, especially early on. So as you're moving out, maybe around this area even, it could be a little bit further back, but like, the closer it is, the further it's going to see. Um, but yeah, having a radar to see if anything tries to sneak by, because, as it is right now, enemy units could just sneak by here. And the commander, has that radar of their their own, so they can see a bit, around them. And then your ally has a radar, so like it's not a big deal. They would actually, you'd still be able to see it. Obviously, there's dots back here, so there is a radar, but um, some that's generally something to consider. But yeah, you're so close to your ally who already has a radar that it's okay that you don't actually. Um, all right, so right here, I would suggest grabbing the mechs immediately. Especially this one because it's a 4.3. It's much more metal than some of these other ones. And I don't know if the numbers are on by default, but you can set them on in the settings. In fact, let's take a look. I think it's probably under interface. Um, Sorry, just give me a second. I'm not used to looking for this one. Where is it? So many options, especially if you put it on advanced. But yeah, it should be interface, right? Maybe it's over here. Oh, okay. So it's on the second page, and I don't know if you need advanced on or not, actually. Let's actually turn it off just to see. Metal spots. That might be an advanced one. Okay. Well, so you go to advanced, you go to the second page, and then you make sure that this is on. If it's not, I mean, I don't know if it is on by default or not, but there it is. Um, but yeah, this one is heavier and more important for that reason. All the middle ones are. So, the more the the more frontal your position is, the better, because then you could also maybe grab this one, and if you're able to push your opponent really far back, you can even grab this one. Very unlikely, but it's there. Even if you lose it, like it usually pays off to have it for at least a little bit. But yeah, metal, very, very important. Try to grab, specifically this one with your commander as he moves up. And then, you can have a construction bot grab these other ones along the way. Because yeah, you can also choose to build, on here with your commander as you are pushing forward, but it will set you back in terms of how far you are up with your commander. So just something to consider. Um, like I was saying, like it's very important to get your commander to the fronts, especially on this map. So, because of the metal reclaim, so it's better to skip them and get them with your constructors. So I'm glad that you got your constructors out. I believe you cranked or assisted the lab to get the second one out with your first constructor. Um, so now you're adding on metal extractors and stuff. You're adding on this construction cert. To me, this is quite early. The thing is, construction turrets. I mean, they don't cost a ton, but this early on, it's enough. It's going to take enough build power off of your lab. That's you might want to wait to do this and just assist with more constructors. So constructors provide a bit of energy on their own as well. Construction vehicles provide 10, which is pretty significant actually. It's half a solar. So the fact that they are your build power and they produce energy and they're mobile, there's quite a bit of utility with constructors. Whereas a construction turret, although it's more efficient in terms of metal for build power, and is quite good to have, I would just say it's a bit early here. Also, your lab is idle. Ideally, you would be producing units out of here as well. The idea being you want like basically as much units as you can get, and you want the resources to get those units, right? So, having your lab idle is not exactly ideal here, though there are times when you might want your lab to be idle. Anyways, I've done a lot of pausing so far. Again, I'm not going to go too crazy with this analysis just because there's so much to talk about this early on, and I don't want to like, add too much to the list of things to try to remember quite yet. Just work on the basics. Work on, a couple things at a time. Try not to like do a ton of things at once because it's going to be hard to remember everything and adapt everything at once. So yeah, a little bit early on that. You're producing units now again. In case you don't know, you can set a lab to repeat. So instead of like queuing up a bunch of Janices and then, you know, like, you know, in this example, you've built 5. After those 5 are built, the lab's going to be idle. And it's not good to have things idle, generally speaking. You know, so instead, you could just turn repeats on, and then whatever you have queued up, it'll build it in that order that you have queued up. So in this case, if you want just Janus, you can just click Janus once, and you know there'll be that one there. It'll just produce Janus constantly. But say, for example, you wanted a medium tank and Janus. Actually, let's make it more complex than that. You could even do something like, I want a medium tank, then a Janus, then another medium tank, and then a Whistler. You know, so it'll produce it in that order and then repeat that. So it'd be medium tank Janus, medium tank Whistler, medium tank Janus, medium tank Whistler. You know, so like basically produce at a ratio that you want in the order that you want. So yeah, now you're using that. Now you need more energy. Just note that so in bar, basically you're going to want a lot of energy production. It just that's how it is. You need a lot of those buildings. Um, so you're just gonna want more things, you know, to produce energy with because now it's starting to drain. So basically, what I'm saying is, overall, I guess just to sum this up a little bit, it's like as soon as your energy starts draining, you want to add energy on ASAP, and you can kind of anticipate how much energy you need as you get more comfortable or more used to the game and the ebbs and flows of it. And you might realize you just want to constantly produce energy at a certain point. Especially as you work into tier 2 and things like that. It's just generally good to have like you select your constructor, do something like winds. Like on this map you want winds because it's so high, and you can just do you can do one at a time wherever you want and hold shift to like queue it up and just place it everywhere. But you can also do things like hold shift and then it does a line, right? And you can adjust the spacing. Well, I'll talk about the spacing in a second. But you can draw a line with it, and it's going to look like this, right? You can also hold Alt to make it a grid. So the line is like this, and the grid is like this. And then if you want to, you can add spacing to these buildings, and it's building specific. So you can say, I want, one spacing for winds, and then for solar, I want. Why is it? What? That's weird. Why is it bugging out for me? Oh, why it's showing different sizes here. That should not be happening. But yeah, let's. I mean, you could do it with. You can do this with any building. And you space it out by when you're holding Shift and Alt. Alt gives you that grid. But you can do Alt Z to space it out more, and Alt X to space it out less. But yeah, it's building specific. So like, say you wanted, your turrets very spaced out, and you still wanted a grid like that. That's totally doable. And then if I go back to the wind, it's still on just one. I don't know why it's bugging out like that, but it is what it is. And also the spacing saves between games. So if you always want wind to be spaced by 1, which I generally do it that way, you just have to do Z once. So it's always like that. So that should help out a bit. I would say this anti-air is not really necessary. Not a lot of people are going to be going air. Typically, in 8v8s, air is basically like one person's job. to just get air. In this case, let's see, it's yeah, this player here has got the air lab, and so you don't really have to worry about it quite yet. At this point there might be like air scouts going around or something like that. You might get a notification of like aircraft detected. Um, but just know that this early on, it's not going to be like a big bombing run or something like that. So you don't have to really get this nettle yet. At some point, yes, it's good to have a nettle or two. I would just say it's just early for it. All right, so here you start producing some advanced solar, but if you notice, your energy is draining, quite a lot. Um, so here it's like negative. You're using up 300 energy a second, and you're gaining 123. Winds right now, if you notes it is actually at max at 19. It's actually quite high, so your energy gain is very very low compared to what you're using. And the reason being is this solar collector, this advanced version, costs a lot of energy. It's 5,000 energy. Um, and if your screen doesn't show all the numbers here, I do suggest turning that option on in settings, um, which is probably an interface somewhere. Sorry, I'm not going to spend a ton of time looking for all that stuff, but just know that there's a lot of good options like that that might help you out into like understanding how expensive something is. Because the more expensive something is, the more resources are going to be drained per second as you build it. Uh, and so, yeah, these advanced solar collectors are very energy expensive. And so, generally speaking, if you really need energy, you do not want them. And that sounds counterintuitive, right? So let me explain. Um, so solar collectors are well, yeah. So advanced solar is a nice like bit of plus 75 energy per second. So it's significantly more than like a basic one, for example, that only gives 20. In this case, wind also gives 20, so actually wind is extremely efficient here. Um, but yeah, 5,000 energy compared to 0 and compared to 175 is very significant. And so in order to build this, you want to already have an established amount of energy coming in. I would say, yeah, usually I would say somewhere around 300. 300 to 400 is good. It really depends on how much build power you're spending on your lab and elsewhere, so there's all that to consider as well. Um, but yeah, so generally you do not want this until you already have a bunch of other things built. I would also say on this map, wind being as good as it is, uh, solar collectors are just not what you want here. You want a lot of wind on this map. Um, and that's something that it takes a second to understand for bar, but a lot of the times things are talked about in terms of metal efficiency, especially when it comes to energy production. And basically, solar is like basic solar is one of the least efficient ways to get energy because it costs so much metal. Um, and it's like the more metal you spend on the solar, the less you're spending on units, the less you're spending on defense, the less you're spending on teching up and stuff like that. So, 155 metal to get plus 20 is just bad. It's really bad. Comparatively, on this map, and it's going to depend on the map, but here, wind turbines they only cost 37 metal for Armada, 45 for Cortex, so it is quite a bit more for Cortex. But either way, they are far more efficient than solar collectors in more than most cases. Um, but you might still want a solar collector or two because it's consistent. They always give 20, right? Whereas winds can give, on this map, wind can only produce 1 per second. Like it can get as low as 1. So in terms of the winds, you want to think of it as like what is the average, because that's going to be spaced out over time. Um, and so here, I don't know if you've hovered over this before, but yeah, wind is more efficient when the average is 5 or more for Armada and 6 or more for Cortex. It's 6 for Cortex because the wind costs a little bit more, and the solars cost very slightly less. Um, when it comes to advanced solar, actually I might just pull this up really quick. Sorry, I should have prepared this beforehand. Opening up a spreadsheet I made to just check some numbers real quick. So for Armada, advanced solars or wind is more efficient than advanced solar for Armada when the wind speed is 7.5 or greater. So the fact that it's 14.2 means it's basically double as efficient for Armada. Uh, if you ever play Cortex, that number is 9.1, by the way. It's even more because, again, because of the cost of the wind. So in terms of metal, it's better to produce more wind turbines here, far more efficient. So, and actually, on this particular map, they're actually more metal efficient than fusions and advanced fusions even. They're the best energy in the game in terms of metal cost. The only problem with them is to get that kind of energy, you need a lots of wind turbines. You'd need like all this for like a fusion. Maybe not that much. That's like exaggerating a lot, but I hope you get the point that like yeah, you need a lot of it. And so it takes a while to build all that. Um, and you don't really have the space for it, right? Like if you did that, you'd be building into your allies' bases and stuff like that. So not ideal. So I'm not trying to say don't build a fusion or don't build an advanced fusion or anything like that, because they do save a ton of space. I'm just saying that they're going to be more efficient than anything else, this early on. Except for geos. Geos are the most efficient forms of energy. Though same thing. If you ever build a geo, by the way, um, geos cost even more energy than advanced solar. So keep that in mind when you're building it. That you're going to want even more energy to start doing that. Anyways, that's my energy rant. There's a lot of details like that, so I just wanted to make sure I cover that in detail. Nice D-gun there. So yeah, this is really important here. It's just like fighting over this 4.3 mechs. At the very least, you want to deny your opponent from getting it. And he's trying his best to try to secure it, so that's why he's like so in your face here. Yeah, these light laser towers you didn't really need either. I would say grab this metal, push forward. Oops. Let me clear that. Push forward after grabbing the metal. And then when you see your opponent, especially if you see their commander, start placing down light laser towers to create a barrier. That way you get here sooner and you can try to deny this 4.3 from them. Now, if your opponent's not here yet, you can actually just keep pushing forward, set up towers here instead, and then all of a sudden, this is yours. And now you have that nice extra 4.3 metal per second, which, in this game, 4.3 is very significant. Like right now, you're getting plus 18. 4.3 is a significant percentage of that to be gained. At the very least, you want to deny your opponent having it. So, but yeah, that's the whole reason to walk to the front, to try to deny them that and gain it for yourself, as well as all the reclaim and whatnot to give yourself a boost. But yeah, I can tell that you know what you're doing over here a little bit more. You have some understanding of what to do in the front. Unfortunately, you're dealing with these whistlers, and that becomes a nuisance. Let's see, I'm not going to get into this too much, but to deal with whistlers, medium tanks, or a combination of medium, well, there's lots of different ways you can go about it. Like, you can get whistlers and arties yourself. Arties aren't like whistlers can just move out of the way of arties or artillery, so to me they're not totally ideal. To me, medium tanks and Janus are a great combination for whistlers. The medium tank to absorb damage. Um, actually, medium tank specifically because Janus is a little bit slow as well. Whistlers are quite slow. So Whistlers have movement speed of 45. Januses have movement speed of 54. So they are faster, but it's going to take longer for them to catch up, and they're just going to take damage along the way. They don't have a ton of hit points, so that's why you want the medium tanks at the very least. But the medium tanks are a little bit faster as well, so they can catch up to the Whistlers and kill them. Um, so they can absorb the shots on, until they get to the Whistlers, and then once they do get to the Whistlers, they can start actually damaging them. Because Whistlers can be annoying from a distance. But yeah, I'm gonna stop the replay here pretty soon because I have covered quite a lot of information already, and it's gonna be more important to fix all that early game stuff than anything else that happens here. Because the sooner you get your economy, the sooner you get your economy going, the more units you'll have here at the front. Now, if you notice, Red has quite a few units here, whereas you could have matched him a lot better if you opened a little bit differently. So that's what I want to really hone in on here, and just show that it's so important. And yeah, you're doing, you're moving stuff out of the way of the Whistlers and stuff. So I mean, not doing a horrible job there, in general. So here, well, it's not too much yet, but at some point, this will start to be too much energy income. It's just like the more, especially when it comes to solars, again, because they're not metal efficient, you're just spending metal on getting energy that you aren't really utilizing. This is a little bit more advanced than what I was talking about, but for beginners, I would say, yeah, just keep adding on energy, and on this map again, it would be winds, not solar. Um, but yeah, as you get better and you get more comfortable with how much energy you actually need, um, when it comes to tier 2 especially, because if you once you get into tier 2, you're going to need a lot more energy than you do for tier 1. So there's there's certain ways where it's like you probably just want to keep adding on energy, until you get that tier 2, so that you have enough energy when you get it to produce all the things you want with it. Um, but yeah, be before that, there is time when you want to perhaps stop producing energy because you don't really need any more quite yet, and then build on a bunch more energy when you get that tier 2. Um, but yeah, again, I don't really want you to worry about that quite yet. To me, fixing the opener and your energy needs and stuff a little bit faster would help you out a lot more. And then also, yeah, grabbing the mexes faster with those early constructors. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up here. I hope you learned something. If you did not, or if you have any questions or anything, if I know it's always possible I misspoke or whatnot, definitely message me, leave it in the thread that was created, or leave a comment on YouTube, and I'll check it out. But yeah, thanks for watching. Uh, Again, yeah, I hope you learned something.